Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Legend of Korra Book 4 Balance episode commentary. This one's going to be for K409 Beyond the Wilds, episode 9 of Book 4 Balance. To sync up your copy of the episode with this commentary track, what you need to do is have the episode ready to start, including the usual intro to every episode of Legend of Korra. Obviously that starts off with Kyoshi and then you get the Earth, Fire, Air, Water bit. So have the episode ready to press play at the start, including the intro. I'm going to stop speaking now in a moment, and then when I come back after the pause, you hit play, I'll hit play, and we'll be synced up. So, yep, I'm going to stop speaking now, press play on your copy of the episode after I start speaking again after a pause. Okay, so here we are with K409 Beyond the Wilds. And, yeah, we go from one of the worst episode of Avatar and Korra to one of the best episodes of Book 4 Balance, because this is the episode where Korra really completes her kind of recovery. And some really big scenes in this episode. Obviously the scene with Zahir is most notable, but just the plot in general of like Tenzin's kind of lost a little bit of faith in her, doesn't think she can solve this issue of people being captured by the spirit minds, and her kind of proving everyone wrong. It's like it's actually a really big moment in the series, because up to now that's been her kind of issue. She's been kind of like doubting herself as the Avatar. Now that she's only recently come back, and so her having this big moment where she does this stuff on her own, gets over her issues, is really important in this book and for Korra's arc in general. But yeah, we get to see Ryu and his family. Nice to see them come back, but not the most important minor characters. Just setting up the whole spirit mind thing, that because of what Kuvira has been doing in the swamp, the spirit minds elsewhere in the world are reacting and are kind of like going defense mode, basically like capturing humans and kind of imprisoning them in the spirit world to protect themselves. So it's an interesting dynamic. Ultimately, it doesn't really go anywhere. Like for me, when I first was watching this season as it was airing, I was thinking the way they were going with this was that Kuvira doing what she was doing wasn't caring about the spirits. And so Korra would ask the spirits, who are now friendly with the humans of Republic City, for help, and they would actually help. So you get this big kind of battle towards the end of the book where you have the Korra and her group plus some spirits against Korra's army, Kuvira's army of like machinery and stuff like that. And it'd be this really cool kind of spirit battle where like they yes, it's the fight against Kuvira, but it's also this fight, to protect kind of spiritual things in the world. But they didn't go down that road, and we'll get into that as things go on in the next couple of episodes. But for now, we have Beyond the Wilds. I like they kind of set up this little group, like Opal, Jinora, and Korra, just this kind of middle part just as Korra's returned back. That's the kind of group that kind of stays together a little bit to investigate some stuff, because their airbenders are all kind of reasonably spiritual, so it kind of works. My only disappointment with this episode is really that Jinora was the one who was captured. I think I almost feel like it would have been better if there was just some other character who was captured. Like almost like that, like Tenzin was captured and Korra has to save him with the help of Jinora. I think would have been better to give Jinora something to do this book, because she's not really in it all that much. But instead they kind of put Jinora in this kind of situation where she needs to be saved. It's the same book as she just becomes a master airbender. I don't really like that so much, because Jinora's obviously has her big moment where she and Opal help save Korra from Kuvira a couple of episodes ago. But beyond that, her two big involvements in this book are basically nearly getting killed in the final battle and has to be saved, I think, by Tenzin, and then this episode where she gets captured by spirit minds. But Korra's technique comes back and she realizes what's going on here. Spirit vines are being affected. And coming up, we get the return of Bolin to Republic City and a full-on reunion of Team Avatar. So, it's a notable episode in that the kind of reunion section of the series is still continuing. But we have Fire Lord Izumi here as well. And yeah, we get our first lines of dialogue here. She doesn't really speak that much. It's interesting that Raiko, for the first time in the whole series, you kind of agree with for the first time. For in book 2 and 3, you really dislike him for just not making any good decisions, but here he's actually trying to do some stuff. And Korra's frustrated because, not just, Tenzin's losing faith in her, but they're not including her in things anymore either. And yeah, woo over Korra, I mean. But yeah, it's just a fun scene, everyone just ends up convening in the same location. And they have the kind of key part of information. Korra's just found out that it's something with the spirit vines and them adapting to what's going on, but they don't know what Kavir is actually doing with spirit vines. And so Bolin and Varric reveal that the reason she's hurting the swamp is to get spirit vines to power her weaponry. And this is what causes people to act. It's just a really interesting plot that they're using something spiritual in a more kind of weaponry sense, like this looming threat. And here's Izumi's big involvement. And yeah, I like that she references history, that they've been fighting too many wars, they don't want to get dragged into another one, because there's no other choice. And, if you attack, you have to do it without it, so we'll just go into defensive. It's just kind of one of those situations where, yes, defensive is fine, but you know what she's like. This isn't going to work out too well. And then we get the start of kind of Bolin's quest to make amends with Opal, which is an interesting plot, and that ultimately it is just her who's the one he really needs to kind of make amends with. Because it's just a situation of, he believed so much in the Kuvira cause without knowing the full thing, yet wouldn't really listen to her when she was basically saying stuff that she specifically saw. And he just has to gain that trust back. And then we get the plan that the Beifongs are going to have to go off on their own to get this done. No one else is going to get involved, really, to help get the rest of their family back. We can't involve anyone else, which obviously sets up Bolin ultimately making amends by joining that group. And yeah, Bolin apologizing to Mako because early in the season they left on bad terms to Bolin, again, only seeing the good side of what Kuvira was doing and not seeing any of the bad. And you're just seeing Team Avatar kind of come back together fully. It's just nice that towards the end of the season they are getting back together fine, they're all on good terms, and we're going to have the big kind of final moment of the team together. But of course, Jinora is the one to get captured. And I just don't really understand why it had to be Jinora. I said this earlier on, but it's just arguably your most spiritual character in the show, really, you have her get captured by the spirit vines. I really don't understand that decision, especially when she was so important in book 2 and 3, and then you kind of make her unimportant in book 4. It's one of the more disappointing aspects of things. At least her spirit power allows her to get everyone on the case. Mako must be just oh, Jinora can do that. Because, you sort of see him, he knows that that's her technique, but it must be kind of odd for the other characters to see spirit world stuff. And again, there's just people doubting her. But Lynn knows that she's probably best suited to doing this, and Mako comes in. Some pretty cool action there. As we see just the specific way that the people have been captured, held in these kind of orbs, which basically being in those orbs transfers their spirit into the spirit world while keeping their body alive. It's this weird imprisonment type thing. Very interesting. They'll explain the mechanics of it too well, but just from what happens, the way Korra frees them and what's happened, you sort of understand. Korra tries to use her kind of light bending technique as her spirits to fix this, but it doesn't quite work. Because I suppose the reason this doesn't work is because it's a purification technique fundamentally, and there's nothing, I suppose, evil about the spirits doing that. And it's a combination of also the fact that she hasn't quite got her connection back with Rava, which is part of the key part of this episode. And this is interesting here. She hasn't really tried to meditate into the spirit world in a while, and so when she tries, she just kind of goes further, deeper into her visions. And fundamentally, it's Zahir who caused all of the problems that she's having. He's the one who poisoned her, injured her, nearly killed her, which is this vision that we're seeing here. Her problem is primarily with him. And, I liked Zahir from book 3. He was definitely the best of the 4 villains last book, but even him, I don't feel we got too much on his character. That you just, okay, he likes airbender poetry, but you don't explain it that much. You have to assume, oh, he's done martial arts before, which is why he's better at airbending. And it's just a lot of things you have to assume. They don't tell you anything about it. It's really weird. But his involvement here in book 4, the only one of those characters who survived book 3, makes him more interesting, because you see him and Korra talk again, because they didn't have that sort of relationship where the two were just not able to talk to each other, that kind of hero-villain, they can't talk because they fundamentally disagree on so much. We saw even from their book 3 talk that they are the kind of hero-villain kind of combo that can actually have these discussions about things. In that the only reason he had any issues with her is because he was the Avatar, and he was against all positions of kind of power. Personally, he has nothing against her, and actually the Red Lotus wanted to train the Avatar more in their line of thinking. The scene that we just saw there that I was talking over was obviously Tenzin kind of showing that he doesn't quite have enough faith in Korra, but ultimately understanding that her talking to Zahir is going to be important, and that meeting has been set up. But yeah, Pabu Bolin reunion. And the interesting thing here about how Bolin starts off his kind of path to reuniting with Opal is that he only thinks about making it up to her in a romantic sense. He just assumes that things will go back to normal and doesn't actually address the actual problem that Opal has with Bolin at this time, that being that his actions inadvertently, he was on the side of the people who captured her family, and that's the only thing she can think of right now. That has to happen, her family safe, before anything can happen with them as a couple relationship. But at the same time, this is one of the romances that I feel in the series is actually done really well, in that there's elements of drama included in their relationship, as you see here, but the resolutions and stuff like that are done well. The conflicts that happen between the two make sense, unlike some of the more, Mako, Korra, Asami type issues that happened that were a bit all over the place. These ones kind of like are actually meaningful in that the two actually do have a really good relationship and work well together. It's just Bolin is not handling this in the best way possible, focusing on the wrong thing. But yeah, Asami and Varric get teamed up again, which works because in book 2 that was they had kind of friction over the whole business thing went awry. That was at the time when Varric was kind of like one of the villains and stuff like that. But they have to put their genius minds together to help defend the city. But I love that Asami just like is like, no, you do anything, I will break your arm. And Varric's just like, not messing with her anymore. But yeah, here we have Zahir's prison. Again, Order of White Lotus, one of the only times we get to see them post book 3. Which, again, problem with book 3, just like, where were the Order of White Lotus after the first couple of episodes? In a book that was focusing on like a conflict between the Order of White Lotus and Red Lotus, it was really weird that they didn't include them towards the end. But yeah, you see just how lost in thought Korra is as she heads in to see Zahir. That this is big, this meeting here. That she doesn't know exactly how this is going to go. She has a plan in her mind that she's just going to go in there, say what she needs to say, and leave. But she's not really thinking what exactly Zahir is going to say to her, and that's ultimately where the kind of interesting aspects come from. She leaves Mako outside, appreciates the support, but she has to do this alone. Which I do like that they do kind of pair Mako and Korra up a little bit towards the end of the book, just to give her moments with him, even after the breakup. It was important to have. But here we go. Zahir, meditating, still can use his kind of flying powers, basically. And just to see this villain who's so spiritual, and it's so easy for him despite all his kind of issues, yet Korra, who is the hero of the book, is struggling so much that it's causing problems with her spirituality and stuff like that. But yeah, we see that she is still afraid of him. But he's not here to scare her. And I find it interesting here that he is not that villain who's so diabolical that he's just going to, like, I'm evil, I won't help you at all. He understands that Korra, you know, in many ways has the potential to help the world and kind of make it more like the way he wants it, even though she may not do it exactly. So, like, they have issues with each other, obviously last book, but again, as I said, it wasn't like really personal. And just a lot of the dialogue here is just excellent. Just like she's blaming him for everything when, you know, she has to get through a lot of this on her own. Like that she can solve a lot of her own problems herself. She has all the power in the world. Her powers don't have limits, but she's kind of putting limits on them. And then he points out to her, like, the most obvious thing in the world is just that the poison should have killed you. You know, I planned this out. It should have killed you, but it didn't. You survived. You're here. I'm here. Look at the situation. You beat me. And then the kind of armor-piercing question, almost just like, you ended up creating Kuvira, basically. We together have to work together to beat her, basically. And this is where Zahir, it's good for him to actually help her get past her this kind of spiritual block and help her finish her recovery. Help her get into the spirit world and complete that recovery. And she's so, I won't say desperate, but she's so eager to fully heal that she will accept this advice, because say what you will about Zahir, he is an extremely spiritual person. But yet she sees the vision, and I absolutely love that how the healing actually happens in the end is just that she has to watch the full vision through and realize that she didn't die, that what happened next was that she beat Zahir. yes, she got hurt, yes, she got poisoned, but she won. And it's this really interesting thing. It's just like watching the full vision get her through that block, reconnects her with Rava. And it's a really well done just villain helping the hero moment. And there's the return of Rava, really cool moment. She's so happy to have her back. Again, like a little bit of confusion about like how does the Avatar stay before Rava's back? Like they're basically the same thing. Like how does that work? But it doesn't take away from how strong the moment actually is. And Korra can use the spirit world. You see her manipulate it there to kind of travel large distances very quickly, like Zahir did in book 3 with Ioway. And here we get the kind of energy bending comment from Rava that kind of setting up what you can do with the spirit minds, that you can literally bend spirit energy. You're connected to all spiritual energy, so you can bend all energy effectively, which I suppose, now that those lines inadvertently reveal to us that Korra in the final scene with Kavira kind of energy bends that thing to create a new spirit portal. And here she frees everyone who was captured by the vines. Really cool moment, great like light effects. And Janora has a really good line here going up to Tenzin. Here it is. Reunion. Korra saved us, and he's just like, I shouldn't have doubted her. Korra feels whole again. Now she has Rava back, and she's got past her issues. And then here, this is important. She isn't going to forget about what Zahir did to her, but she's finally able to accept it. And that's just really well written. That it's not a case of forgetting it. It's just accepting it and not letting it like completely dominate her. And here's Bolin finally gets it, I suppose. He wants to try. He just wants to try. And yeah, he says, I love you. And she wants you can tell that she kind of wants to say it back, but she has to kind of just make him do this last thing to help her before she can say it back. A little bit disappointing that she doesn't say it back like towards the end. Like I would have liked it at maybe at the wedding, to where like you see the two go into the dance floor where maybe she returns the I love you just as that final kind of Bolin and Opal scene. They don't do it, and I feel it's a little bit incomplete, but again, the comics, if there are ever Korra comics, can definitely cover their relationship and where it goes from here. But strong ending to the episode, with obviously setting up next episode, Operation Beifong, where it's, obviously Opal, Lin, and Bolin trying to save Su, Wei, and Wing, so as well as the others. So it's a cool setup for the next episode, that obviously Bolin, this is going to be his big way to make it up by... he was on the wrong side when Kavira came to Jiaofu. They ended up getting captured. Now he's on the good side, and they're going to save them. And obviously there's the whole setup of like, Lin and Toph are probably going to come into contact here, which happens at the very start of the next episode. But Beyond the Wilds, really strong episode. It tells a story just on its own in many ways. Like, this is the episode where Korra completes her recovery. It deals with the plot of the people captured by the spirit vines. It links into everything else going on, but it feels really good and kind of stand alone on its own. So that's makes it a very strong episode. But yeah, that's been a commentary track. Probably going to have the next commentary track out on Thursday or Friday. Tomorrow's video, the Wednesday video, is going to be my top 10 basically things I still want to know about the Avatar universe. That's going to be the video tomorrow. So other than that, thanks for listening to this commentary, and bye.